Iran has begun laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz. This is according to two people familiar with the matter.
U.S. Central Command has released video showing U.S. airstrikes destroying multiple Iranian naval ships, including 16 mine layers near the Strait of Hormuz.
At 0507 local time, Petty Officer First Class Marcus Webb finds the mine at 19 meters down, his dive light catching its corroded hull at an angle that turns the steel amber. Before his brain fully processes what the shape means, he goes completely still, lets the current carry him 2 meters back.
Studies it. Contact mine. Old design. New components.
The sensor package bolted to its crown is recent manufacture. Its housing still carrying the factory sheen that seawater needs 6 months to remove. Someone took a weapon that navies have been clearing since the Second World War and updated its trigger to something considerably more difficult to fool. That combination, old body, new brain, is exactly the kind of thing that makes EOD officers lose sleep before an operation and drink heavily after one. He signals his partner, Petty Officer Second Class Anna Sorrell, with 2 flat palms pressed together.
Stay.
The USS Pioneer, an Avenger-class mine countermeasures vessel worth roughly $60 million and carrying some of the most specialized underwater clearance equipment in the United States Navy, is holding position 600 meters northeast. The ship has been working this transit lane since 0200. 3 mines confirmed in the first 4 hours of the survey. Each one plotted, each one flagged, each one marked with a buoy placed at safe standoff distance.
This is the 4th.
Intelligence said 8 to 12 were laid across the lane's navigable width sometime in the 72 hours before an MH-60 helicopter crew spotted the first mooring cable during a routine Gulf patrol. The MH-60 is the Navy's general-purpose workhorse across the region, a $22 million aircraft doing the unglamorous work of looking at water from low altitude until something looks wrong. Something looked wrong. The shipping queue is stacked 22 vessels deep in the southern holding area. The lead tanker, a 300,000-ton very large crude carrier called the Pacific Meridian, fully laden, riding low enough that her keel would pass within 4 meters of the channel floor, has been holding at anchor for 31 hours. Her master called Bahrain twice the previous day to ask how much longer. Nobody gave him a number because nobody had one. Somewhere in an oil futures trading room, someone is watching this corridor very carefully. That is the quiet part of mine warfare nobody puts in the press release. Webb pulls his survey slate from his kit and begins logging the device's position. The current at this depth runs northeast at roughly half a knot. Gentle, consistent, the kind of movement that is easy to forget until it has carried you somewhere you did not intend to be. He braces against it with small fin movements and works the slate with both hands, building the position record the Pioneers team needs before any approach decision gets made. Sorrell hangs 3 meters back, watching the mine sensor package the way you watch something that might change its behavior if it notices you watching. At 0519, the Pioneers dive coordinator, Chief Petty Officer Lena Marsh, comes through the underwater communications link. Her voice carries the particular compression of acoustic transmission, recognizable, authoritative, slightly mechanical, like someone talking to you through a wall made of water.
Webb, we have a problem.
New survey contact, bearing 270 from your position. Approximately 80 meters. Marker buoy just surfaced.
Webb checks his compass. Southwest, 80 meters. He looks at Sorrell.
She is already looking back at him.
A 5th mine.
80 meters southwest. In the deeper water along the channel's western edge before it shelves up toward the shoreline. A mine in that position, combined with the 4 already plotted, creates an overlapping coverage pattern that closes off the channel's navigable width more completely than any single device could manage on its own. You cannot thread a 300,000-ton tanker through the geometry without exposing her hull to at least one engagement envelope. Not randomly laid. Deliberately patterned. Someone who understood how large draft vessels move through a constrained channel designed this.
Marsh again.
I need you on sequencing. We have the Pacific Meridian moving in 4 hours. Whether the lane is clear or not, her master is citing cargo insurance obligations and we have no authority to hold her beyond 0900.
For devices confirmed. 1 new contact.
EOD team has 3 certified pairs available.
What is your call?
Webb looks at the mine in front of him. Looks at the compass bearing where the 5th one sits.
3 pairs. 5 devices. 4 hours.
The math is not comfortable, but it is navigable. Barely.
If each device is straightforward.
If the new contact matches the configuration of the others. If nothing goes wrong with the sequence timing. Then the dive light catches something on the mine sensor package that was not visible a moment ago. A secondary housing. Small, flush-mounted below the primary trigger, connected by 2 wire leads that disappear into the mine's body.
A backup trigger.
Not in the intelligence brief. Not present on any of the previous 3 devices. Webb stares at it for 6 seconds. He keys his comm, keeps his voice flat, and tells Marsh exactly what he is looking at. What Webb did not know was that the secondary housing was not a last-minute field modification. It was a deliberate upgrade applied specifically to devices 4 and 5, the ones positioned to cover the channel's centerline, the track any large draft vessel would have to follow regardless of minor navigational deviation. Whoever designed the layout understood that standard EOD sequence for contact mines begins with the primary trigger. They built the acoustic backup to activate on the pressure disturbance that a standard approach produces. The outer mines were meant to be found. The inner ones were meant to be the answer to whoever thought they had figured out the pattern. It was a genuinely intelligent design. The kind of thing that earns professional respect even from the people it is trying to kill. It was also about to cost the EOD team 4 hours they did not have. Web surfaces at 0531 with a full photo package of the secondary housing, 4 angles documented, wire lead routing recorded, mounting position logged relative to the primary trigger. The Pioneer is 300 meters northeast. A rigid inflatable boat is already crossing the flat water toward him and Sorrel before they have finished their ascent. The technical consultation runs 12 minutes via satellite link to EOD command in Bahrain. The senior analyst on the line is a warrant officer named Choi, who has been awake for 19 hours and whose voice carries the particular focused patience of someone running entirely on expertise and institutional memory rather than anything resembling rest. He identifies the secondary housing within 40 seconds of receiving the imagery.
Acoustic trigger backup.
The primary is pressure differential. The secondary is acoustic. If you interrupt the primary without addressing the secondary first, the acoustic component activates on the pressure change your approach produces. You have to reverse the sequence. Acoustic housing first, then primary. That is the only safe order. How much additional time per device?
2 minutes. 5 devices. 10 additional minutes total.
Against a window that was already measured in minutes rather than hours. The margin between available time and required time just compressed from uncomfortable to critical. Marsh maps the revised sequence on the dive board while she is still talking through the implications with Choi. The plan takes shape in real time on the grease board above the Pioneer's dive coordination station. Pairs run simultaneously on devices 1, 2, and 3, clean devices, standard configuration, sequence unchanged, fastest possible clearance. Webb and Sorrel take device 4. Martinez and Okafor take the new contact at 80 meters southwest. Simultaneous final approach on the last 2, time to begin 15 minutes after the first 3 are confirmed clear.
Webb looks at the board.
The geometry works if every pair executes without error. He and Sorrel are back in the water at 0554. Device 4 sits where he left it,
patient and indifferent.
The current moving past its hull in slow amber ribbons of disturbed bottom sediment. Webb approaches from the north this time, the direction Choi specified for acoustic housing access. The angle that keeps the pressure differential across the primary trigger at its minimum value during the entire approach sequence. A few degrees off course and the physics change. The physics changing is not an outcome anyone is planning for. At 4 meters out, the acoustic housing fills his entire field of vision, the size of a closed fist. Its surface carrying the same recent manufacture sheen as the primary trigger mounted above it. 2 wire leads. 2 mounting screws. A release mechanism that requires a specific tool sequence to defeat without generating the acoustic event that the housing exists to detect. Webb places his tool kit against the mine's hull and finds the first mounting screw by feel alone. His light angled away to keep illumination even across the sensor surface. 30 meters southwest, on the 5th device, Martinez is doing exactly the same thing at exactly the same moment. They are working in parallel now. 2 teams invisible to each other in the turbid water, separated by a distance close enough for mutual consequence and far enough that no communication is possible. Each pair moving through the same sequence at their own pace, against the same clock, with no way of knowing how the other team is progressing. The first mounting screw releases at 0611. Webb controls his exhale through the regulator. Slow and deliberate, the bubbles rising away from the housing in a column that he watches until they clear the sensor's detection radius before he moves again. Second screw. Sorrel has the wire interrupt tool ready. She has been holding it in position for 4 minutes without moving, her arm steady in the half-knot current. The particular stillness of someone who has trained their body to become a stable platform regardless of what the water is doing around it. The second screw releases. Webb lifts the housing 1 millimeter, testing the mounting tension, confirming the screws were the only retention mechanism, and nods to Sorrel. She inserts the interrupt tool between the wire leads and applies exactly the pressure choice specified in his guidance.
The tool seats.
She holds it for 3 seconds without breathing. The mine is neither safe nor armed. It is a device in transition, held in an intermediate state by a piece of equipment that weighs 40 grams and is worth more at this moment than anything else in the Persian Gulf, including the 300,000-ton tanker waiting 11 kilometers to the south.
The interrupt locks.
Webb exhales fully and removes the housing with both hands, cradling it away from the mine's body and clipping it carefully to his collection kit. The acoustic trigger is now physically separated from the device. The primary trigger remains active, but it is a known configuration. Documented approach sequence. Manageable. The kind of problem EOD teams train for on base in Bahrain at 0800 on a Tuesday with coffee and adequate sleep. This is not that situation, but the outcome is the same.
His comm clicks twice. Martinez.
The fifth device's acoustic housing is clear. Both teams move to their respective primary triggers simultaneously. The revised sequence running clean across both positions. The clock showing 0631 when Webb clips the final inert component to his collection kit and the fourth mine becomes a piece of engineering rather than a threat. The Pioneer's dive board shows 5 green status indicators at 0638. All 5 devices neutralized. All 6 EOD personnel accounted for and ascending. Marsh is already on the radio to the Pacific Meridian's master before the last indicator changes color. But the words have not finished leaving her mouth when the hull-mounted survey system logs a new contact.
Bearing south.
Outside the cleared lane. In water the chart marks at 11 meters. Too shallow for the bottom-laid moored mines the team has been clearing since before sunrise. The Pacific Meridian moves at 0712. She enters the cleared lane from the south holding area with the deliberate momentum of a vessel that has been stationary too long and is finally converting that stored urgency into forward motion. Her bow wave is modest. The master holding speed down to 3 knots through the surveyed corridor, following the waypoints with a precision that 300,000 tons of cargo obligation produces in a professional mariner. The Pioneer running parallel 400 meters off her port side. Rigid inflatables flanking the tanker's path with hull-mounted sensors watching the channel floor beneath her track. Webb watches from the Pioneer's stern deck. Still in his wetsuit, salt water running off the neoprene onto the non-slip deck surface. The mine components from devices 1 through 5 laid out on a canvas tarp behind him in the order they were removed, each piece tagged and bagged. Sorrel is beside him, arms crossed against the morning air, doing the thing that divers do after a long cold water operation, standing in the sun and letting it reach through the wetsuit and do its work. The Pacific Meridian clears the lane's northern boundary at 0741. Her master logs the transit time and resumes standard speed for open water. She will be in the Gulf of Oman by afternoon. Her cargo obligations met 32 hours behind schedule. Behind her, the remaining 21 vessels in the southern holding area begin their own sequence, each one moving when the vessel ahead has confirmed its position beyond the survey limit. The convoy threading through the cleared corridor with the patient discipline of ships that have been waiting and understand exactly how to use their turn. Fifth Fleet's official statement reaches the Pioneer at 0809. Navy explosive ordnance disposal personnel successfully cleared 5 underwater mines from a Persian Gulf transit lane on April 13, restoring full commercial navigation through the corridor. Operation concluded without casualties. Chief Marsh reads it at the communications desk and says nothing for a moment. She has been at that desk for 40 minutes, not watching the convoy transit, working the new contact bearing south, the one logged at 0638, outside the cleared lane in the shallower water on the lane's eastern margin. The chart shows 11 meters of depth there. That should preclude the bottom-laid moored mines the team spent the morning neutralizing. But the survey system logged a contact.
Twice.
From 2 different hull positions as the Pioneer moved along her patrol track. The data from both passes is consistent with a solid object resting on the bottom. Something is on the bottom in 11 meters of water, 300 meters east of the cleared corridor, in a position that no vessel transiting the surveyed lane could reach unless it deviated from the certified waypoints, or unless whoever planned the minefield knew the survey team's standard lane width and placed a 6th device just outside it, at the precise distance that a large vessel might drift under light current and minor helm correction. Marsh pulls up the survey imagery and measures the eastern boundary of the cleared corridor against the contact position, 40 meters outside the standard survey lane.
40 meters.
The width of navigational drift that a 300,000-ton VLCC accumulates when her master makes a minor heading correction in the final 200 meters of a confined channel. The exact distance a loaded tanker moves when the helmsman corrects 2 degrees to account for a current the chart said would not be there. Whoever placed the 6th device understood the difference between where large ships are supposed to go and where large ships actually go. That is a meaningful distinction. It took operational knowledge of how fully laden tankers handle in this specific channel to calculate it. She calls Webb in from the stern. He reads the imagery without sitting down. Reads it again. Steps back. Reads it a 3rd time. That is not random placement.
No, Marsh says. It is not.
The 21 vessels in the convoy are moving through the cleared corridor at 3-minute intervals. Disciplined, supervised transit that will take most of the morning to complete.
Their tracks are tight.
Their masters following the waypoints with a precision that 31 hours of delay and a waiting cargo market produce in professional mariners who understand exactly what is at stake for their owners and their charterers and their insurers. But the survey imagery is showing something else that nobody noted at the time because everyone was watching the Pacific Meridian, logged by the same hull-mounted system at 0751, 10 minutes after the Pacific Meridian cleared the northern boundary, while every eye on the Pioneer's bridge was tracking her position. A brief anomalous pressure reading from the water column directly above the new contact's position. The kind of reading that a diver produces when they approach an object from below and their body displaces water against a confined bottom.
Not a fish, not a current eddy, not a malfunction.
The kind of pressure signature a human body makes at 11 meters when it is moving with intent. Not the Pioneer's divers. All 6 EOD personnel had been accounted for on the stern deck since 0640. Marsh had eyes on every one of them.
Webb looks at Marsh.
The two of them standing over the imagery in the communication station, while 21 tankers thread through a corridor 400 meters off the port side. Someone was down there this morning. The water between the Pioneer and the contact position is flat and bright in the morning sun, opaque from the surface, showing nothing of what the bottom holds or what may have visited it in the last 90 minutes. The convoy continuing its transit. Each vessel tracking the cleared corridor's waypoints exactly. Each hull moving over water that has been certified safe to a boundary that may not represent the actual edge of what was laid there. One of those vessels will drift. They always drift. Light current, minor helm correction, fully laden hull responding slowly to the rudder. The question is which one, and by how much, and whether 40 meters of eastward deviation puts her keel over a position that nobody certified this morning, because nobody knew to look there. Marsh picks up the radio handset to call the convoy coordinator. The conversation that follows is going to be deeply uncomfortable for everyone involved. Halting 21 vessels that are already moving through a certified corridor is going to require explanations that the official statement issued 14 minutes ago did not leave room for. Webb is already pulling his wetsuit back on before she finishes dialing. The bottom is 11 meters down. The contact is 300 meters east. The convoy is moving. And whoever placed 6 mines in a pattern specifically designed to survive a full EOD clearance operation sent someone back this morning, while the Pioneer's team was neutralizing devices 4 and 5, while the Pacific Meridian was preparing to transit, while every sensor and every eye was pointed at the certified corridor, to check on the one device they had calculated would never be found. They were 40 meters off on their assumption, which, given what they were working with, was actually impressive. It also means they know the mine is still there. It also means they may know the Pioneer just found it. Webb zips the wetsuit to his throat, checks his regulator, and moves toward the dive platform. Behind him, Marsh is talking fast into the handset, and the convoy coordinator's voice on the other end has gone very quiet in the way that voices go quiet when someone is running numbers they do not like. The water off the Pioneer's eastern side gives nothing away. Flat, bright, patient in the way that the Persian Gulf is always patient with people who underestimate what is sitting on its floor. If you enjoyed this video, check out our other video on U.S. Navy mine countermeasures operations in the Strait of Hormuz. Bye for now.